And good morning to everybody online and to the board. My accountability report this month again sets out the broad range of excellent police work that's happening across Northern Ireland. There have been significant reductions in recorded crime, which I'm sure you've noted, which in the 12 months from the 1st of February of 2024 to the 31st of January of this year showed crime down by 9.2% compared to the previous 12 months. And antisocial behaviour, which is such a scourge to so many people, is down by 3.6% over the same period. The seizure of £6.5 million of suspected Class A and B drugs on Monday demonstrates yet again how effectively our officers continue to work with communities and our international partners to tackle the importation of drugs into Northern Ireland. I want to pay particular tribute to the Angana Síochána for their support in that particular operation, and this comes in advance of a forthcoming joint crime conference between our two organisations. The relationship between the organisations I don't think could be any more productive. February saw, as you mentioned, our student officer and corps handling recruitment campaigns come to a close. I'm delighted that in a very competitive job market, we were able to attract 4,822 student officer applications and 587 for the corps handling positions. It really is positive to see such a large number of people expressing an interest in serving their communities and keeping people safe by joining the police. These numbers increased significantly from the last update I provided to the board. It's my ambition that we will have a recruitment process at least every year, if not that we achieve an ongoing and open recruitment process. We're now working towards bringing these candidates through the assessment process as quickly as possible. I wish all of them well as they enter what will be a rigorous selection process, and very much look forward, as I'm sure the board do, to welcoming them as new colleagues in the organisation. This campaign was an important step for the PSNI. We desperately need the support of these new officers and staff, which will bring real benefits to the entire organisation. The recently published 7th report of the Independent Reporting Commission, the IRC, made clear that a strong policing response remains fundamental to tackling and ending paramilitarism. We have a very productive relationship with the commissioners, and I welcome their report. The IRC sets out the crucial role of neighbourhood policing teams in effectively dealing with paramilitary activity. I share their and communities' considerable frustrations at the constant requirement to extract neighbourhood policing officers to other areas of policing. I promise you we would not do this if it was not absolutely necessary. Simply, we have no choice, as we need to deploy these resources elsewhere to deal with wider risks to the organisation. And this is a consequence of our dangerously low and unacceptable numbers. No one knows the value of neighbourhood policing more than the people sitting beside me. Quite simply, we no longer have the numbers we require to police Northern Ireland. Anywhere else, those statements would be headlines. The fight against paramilitarism also requires detectives to investigate and to manage intelligence. It requires specially trained and equipped search teams and officers who are able to respond to public disorder. You'll be aware from the recent recovery business plan that we submitted that we have fewer officers in all of these specialisms than we've ever had before. The IRC too have acknowledged the importance of properly resourcing the fight against paramilitarism and have correctly highlighted the significant under-resourcing of the Justice Department compared to other departments in recent years, and how this is impacting our ability to deliver vital services. Next month, His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire Rescue Services will deliver its annual report on the PSNI's effectiveness and efficiency. From the early conversations with the Inspector, I believe the report will again, and I emphasise the word again, set out our critically low police numbers and the impact that's having on keeping people in Northern Ireland safe. I expect the board will reflect many of the concerns I have previously raised with regard to our ability to protect vulnerable people, manage dangerous offenders and provide victims with the services that they deserve. These are the inevitable consequences of years of underfunding in the face of growing demand and changing complexities. Like many who doubtless responded to the programme for government consultation, I await reassurances similar to those provided to Health yesterday that these independent reports setting out the unacceptable policing numbers and the consequences to our society will be provided, not just because so many independent bodies have stated this, but also because your Chief Constable keeps repeating it. The programme for government published this week is asking for plenty from policing again in terms of collaboration, speeding up justice and enhancing public safety. We will play the best role our numbers allow in the key priorities of ending violence against women and girls and creating safer communities. However, it's crucially important and fundamental to the security of Northern Ireland that a sufficient and more sustainable funding settlement is achieved for policing if we are to deliver these priorities. I did not see any explicit executive commitment to that in the document. I do welcome the programme's commitment to growing officer numbers and supporting our recovery business case. However, as I've said when the document was in draft, I do not feel the programme for government properly reflects the level of crisis in policing in Northern Ireland, and I will keep making that clear until it is addressed. I would welcome clear statements from ministers outlining support for the recovery plan in the terms of both numbers and funding. I do believe that I've been heard in broad terms about resourcing. It is my belief that there is a cross-party political acceptance that the police service has been severely underfunded and allowed to shrink to unacceptably low numbers. However, actions speak louder than words. That is why it's disappointing the executive have missed this opportunity to provide clarity and to strengthen its commitments to properly resourcing this organisation. There's been much publicity about the funding levels quoted for cutting health waiting times, which I do welcome, but no such reassurances have yet been provided for policing. The implications of our reduced workforce levels and continual budget pressures are certainly severe, but please be in no doubt of how serious this really is. We are at significant risk of failing victims, local communities and our own workforce. This is dangerous for a society which continues to emerge from the traumas of a post-conflict environment. And every time I come before this board, there are examples of that in what's happened in the previous 4 weeks. Not only have I called out the dangerously low policing numbers since my appointment in October 2023, I've been supported by the HMIC FRS, as I've already mentioned, the Independent Reporting Commission, the Criminal Justice Inspectorate for Northern Ireland and the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee. We are now very far from the executive commitment of New Decade New Approach to 7,500 officers. I do worry that it will take some catastrophic event to wake everybody up to the reality of our policing numbers and lead to the investment that's required, which is relatively small with regards to the public service spend. Last month, violent, distant Republicans attempted a brutal murder in broad daylight on the streets of Belfast. This is obviously unacceptable, and our detectives are working hard to bring those responsible to justice. This provides another example of the unique policing challenges in Northern Ireland that require sufficient officers to tackle. And in recent weeks, we've seen several district PCSP community engagement meetings disrupted by protesters linked to distant Republican groups. This too is unacceptable. The right to freedom of speech and of assembly are fundamental human rights. They're protected in law and allow individuals to engage in peaceful protest. However, these rights must be balanced, and the need to uphold the rights of others protect public health and safety and minimise disruption to normal life, and the need to prevent and detect crime. Again, such incidents are unique to Northern Ireland and demonstrate the real need for world-class neighbourhood police officers to support communities and problem solve local issues. We need to recruit the officer numbers we've lost in recent years to put into those neighbourhoods. For the avoidance of doubt, when my officers are called to help people in dire need, such as the recent house fire in Dungannon, where 4 lives were undoubtedly saved, or to protect people facing danger, which happens every single day, they do it in the same determined, professional way for whomever is calling for our help, whatever their background, whatever their culture, whatever their race. We are dedicated to looking after all communities. Following the disruption at one of the District Community Safety Partnership meetings in North Belfast on the 25th of February, 2 men aged 40 and 30 were cautioned by police, and a file is currently being prepared for the Public Prosecution Service for public order offences. We're still examining the circumstances surrounding disruption caused at other meetings, and will review our plans to ensure an appropriate and proportionate policing plan is in place for future events. Once again this month, as mentioned by you, Chair, I find myself having to condemn violence faced by officers and staff. Northern Ireland was shamed again during the course of one weekend last month when 9 officers were injured while on duty in Derry City and Strabane. I'm incredibly proud of the dedication and resilience each officer showed as they all remained on duty, even those who went to hospital, determined to continue to serve their community. I've spoken to each officer, and that determination to protect the public and get in harm's way is actually something that is beyond inspiring. We are incredibly lucky to have our officers and staff. I'm grateful for the support of this board and the Justice Minister in their condemnation of these attacks, but I remain alarmed at the apparent tolerance and indifference that exists in society. Such permissiveness does not exist elsewhere in the United Kingdom. Policing requires our officers and staff to handle difficult and hostile situations, but attacks upon them should never be accepted. An attack on them must be seen on an attack on society as a whole. I'll continue to work with the Department of Justice, seeking sentencing guidelines for those who've carried out assaults on police officers. Some of you, and again you mentioned this, Chair, for which I'm grateful, attended our recent Problem Solving Awards and our International Women's Day event. These were really impressive celebrations of our staff and the high quality of work they do for our communities. I want to thank all those involved for organising those events and the board for your support. And finally, I'd like to offer, as you have done, Chair, all of our sincere congratulations from the senior team and the organisation to Chris Todd, who has been announced as the preferred candidate in the selection process for the Chief Constable of Humberside Police. Chris's support to me personally and everybody sitting beside me has been remarkable. He's been a crucial member of this service executive team, and it's only right his leadership skills, which he demonstrated during management of the data breach, have been proved to be the reason why he's been selected to be the Chief Constable of Humberside. So we wish Chris every success. Now happy to take questions, Chair.